That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is the fifth film directed by Christopher McQuarrie, which is being released courtesy of Paramount on July 12th, 2023. And it is the seventh Mission Impossible film.
Do I know one of Christopher's films?
Yeah, well, he's an Oscar winner for, which he won for Best Screenplay in 1995 for a juggernaut of a film, The Usual Suspects, which he wrote.
With Kevin Spacey?
Yes.
Oh.
Kaiser Sose. I actually am a big fan of his directorial debut, The Way of the Gun, in 2000 with Ryan Phillippe, Benicio del Toro, and Juliette Lewis, and James Caan. Since then, he's been exclusively kind of working with Tom Cruise, at least as a director. In 2012, he did the first Jack Reacher, and he's done the last three Mission Impossible films, including Rogue Nation, Fallout, and Dead Reckoning Part 1 and 2. Tom Cruise seems to like him a lot. He's written several other cruise vehicles, including Valkyrie, The Mummy, and Top Gun Maverick.
So I've only seen one Mission Impossible movie, the one where they're in that big skyscraper.
Ghost Protocol.
Is that it?
The fourth one. Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it.
Well, that has some very memorable scenes. I love the moment when Léa Seydoux gets sucked out.
And I do like Tom Cruise, despite what everyone says about him. I think he feels like a real movie star, and I feel like every movie he's in, it's like made for him.
You know how he manages to be a movie star, especially even just the microcosm of Ethan Hunt in his filmography is Ethan doesn't have that much of a personality, and there's still something magnetic, which feels about
yeah. He also really likes Janet Jackson, so I think that's why I like Tom Cruise, but.
I kind of prefer overall the Mission Impossible films to like James Bond.
Although, what's that one where he keeps dying and coming back?
Edge of Tomorrow.
I like that movie too.
Yeah.
Anyway, the story. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands.
Wow.
This movie, I would say it's good, but it feels long as hell.
It's 2 hours and 43 minutes.
And there are three sequences that I think are amazing. In total, probably an hour worth of the film. Mm-hmm. That's what's making me give it a 3. The rest of it, I didn't really...
I mean, it looks great.
It looks great, yeah. But pretty much anything where Tom Cruise is not in it, which is quite a bit of the film sometimes, like the opening and like these Russians in a submarine who don't speak Russian, that didn't work for me.
A little bit, just a titch, just a scooch of Russian before they're all speaking in accented English.
But to elaborate, the story is very simple. So there is some version of AI that has become sentient, and it is being referred to as the entity. So the entity is this nefarious software that has already demonstrated that it can infiltrate all systems across the globe. So it can do some serious damage. But we learned that there is a set of keys.
Cruciform keys.
And that key is the only way to sort of deactivate this AI. Mm-hmm. So...
And the AI, the sentient entity, knows this.
Knows it. So it has employed a human named Gabriel...
Played by Esai Morales.
...to find that key. Mm-hmm. So the entire movie is the entity trying to get the key through Gabriel, and Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, trying to get the key because he seems to be the only one who thinks we should destroy this technology, and versus everyone else wanting it so they can have ultimate power. Tom Cruise does end up getting the key.
Well, he has one half of the key is his old buddy Ilsa, played by Rebecca Ferguson, who he goes to fetch that from her in the early part of the film.
Sure. So he ends up getting the key at the end because, well, that's it. There's nothing else. It just stops because part 2 now he needs... So we learn in the beginning, the very first scene of the film is this Russian submarine that has this technology to make it invisible. So they've been testing it successfully when all of a sudden the onboard computer freaks out and causes itself to think that there's someone attacking it, and then it just attacks itself.
They shoot a torpedo. It turns out there's no target. Can't cancel the torpedo.
So actually, we see this submarine sink to the bottom of the ocean, which is kind of weird considering what happened recently. But so as the audience, we know that the sort of server that houses this technology is at the bottom of the ocean in this Russian submarine. So I'm assuming part 2 of the film is Tom Cruise trying to get to the submarine so he can deactivate the entity. Mm-hmm. But the end of this film is literally him getting the key and then it's done.
Well, we do return to the submarine in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To remind us that that's probably where we're going. Let's start with the positive. So the three big scenes.
Okay.
So I think the first amazing scene is at the airport where Tom Cruise is trying to, so he has one part of the key.
That he got from Ilsa. Mm-hmm.
And his plan is that not only does he need the other part of the key, but he needs to know who wants this key. So his plan is to sell this key to someone and then follow that person wherever they're going. So he's going to get on the same flight as they are on. Mm-hmm. And Tom Cruise has two helpers, Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg.
Mm-hmm. Luther and Benji.
So they're at this airport when all of a sudden a woman named Grace is a pickpocket.
Played by Hayley Atwell. Mm-hmm.
So then we get like a 20-minute sequence where he's trying to convince this lady to put the key back where she found it because he has to follow that person. I thought that was perfectly paced, a lot of fun. There's even a moment where Tom Cruise does like a little magic trick with his hands that I thought was so entertaining. Yeah, it was just riveting.
But apparently he's somewhat taken with Grace because I think this is Hayley Atwell's best scene in the film because everything afterwards, it doesn't quite make sense how she acts, I think. Or it's very irritating.
Yeah.
So.
And then Ving Rhames trying to sort of navigate Tom Cruise through an earpiece. And then there's a bomb at the airport that Simon Pegg has to deactivate, and that was really fun because the bomb is like a riddle that the entity has created.
And then there's authorities also chasing down Tom,
played by
Shea Wiggum and Greg Tarzan Davis.
The next really good scene is they get to Rome, I believe, Venice.
Rome. There's a scene in Venice too, but
they get to Rome, and they're being chased, Tom Cruise and Grace. And they get into this little yellow electric car. And there's like a 20-minute sequence of that I thought was excellent.
They're being chased by Pom Klementieff from Guardians of the Galaxy as a woman named Paris. And she was pretty intense in those scenes too.
And the third amazing sequence is the end where there's this super long train ride. Kind of reminded me of Indiana Jones.
Dial of Destiny starts with a train ride.
A very long train ride. But this one is riveting, and the end of the train ride I thought was amazing.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. So those three alone make this film worth watching.
I mean, that is the kind of train ride and special effects extravaganza. I mean, to me, that should be up there with the best use of a train since Buster Keaton's The General. Like, it was that good. That segment. It was really good.
The Asian lady from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Pom Klementieff.
She's on my worst hair list. Because I hate bad blonde, and there's nothing worse than a bad blonde wig. Because
well, you know what,
you could have made the wig nice blonde.
It's a visual signifier for Eurotrash.
And then her hair, they always make it look wet. Oh, I just hated it. I hated it.
Well, she's supposed to be a bad girl.
But I did like her character. She's a badass.
She is, and there's a surprising way they use her in the end that I liked as well. Because Ethan has the opportunity to like bash her brains in, and he doesn't. And the entity realizes that because she's saved, that she will eventually turn on the entity because she's working with Gabriel.
That's right. You know, a weakness of these kind of stories to me is there's a lot of like double crossing, and it kind of becomes like arbitrary. And I was a little, particularly with Grace's character, like
she keeps trying to get away from Tom Cruise
like 5 times.
And
he keeps trusting her to the point where he's like, I'm going to make you an IMF agent. Like, this lady is off the chain. Like, she got annoying to me.
But that car chase scene in Rome where he handcuffs himself to hers.
That was so good because at they're handcuffed, but they're handcuffed in a way because she can't really drive the way Tom Cruise can drive. So they're kind of sitting awkwardly where like he's forced to drive with his, like, you know, the wrong hand. Or he doesn't have both hands free. But there's a point where that car flips. And because they've been jumbled around in the car when they land, they've switched positions. I thought that was so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff with that. Again, the opening does feel a bit crunchy. We have Cary Elwes in there and several.
He's crunchy, and you know he's my friend, but that dialogue, even the scene with all the leaders, like Cary Elwes, all the leaders talking about what's happening, and Ethan Hunt. that's a pretty long sequence, and it felt pretty corny until Ethan Hunt shows up, and then it felt like what I needed.
Well, even Ving Rhames has been around since the 1996 original. Both he and Simon Pegg feel, I don't know, a little corny. And then this trifecta of women, Vanessa Kirby, who's been in the past two, is the daughter of the Vanessa Redgrave character from the first one, and Rebecca Ferguson. Rebecca Ferguson has nothing to do in this.
Is she the blonde?
She's the one that she has a sad end.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Ilsa.
Oh yeah, the blonde.
I guess that's blonde.
She is very blonde.
No, Vanessa Kirby, the one with the blue. Vanessa Kirby's very blonde.
The one who has the double.
Alanna, that's the Vanessa Kirby.
Oh, then who are you talking about?
Rebecca Ferguson,
Who's
Ilsa.
that?
She's the one that has the key in the desert in the beginning.
Oh, she's the one in the desert.
And then she's the one that has to save Grace.
Yeah.
Okay, again, that's just a testament to she really has nothing to do, but
I forgot about her.
see, there you go. But she was, to me, the best part of Rogue Nation. She has a ton of really good fight scenes with Tom Cruise in that movie, and then they've had kind of a dalliance, right, that they barely hint at in this, but...
I wanted people to comment below if other people have heard that cashews are the rich man's nut. Because I don't know where I got that from. But I say it all the time. And then it was making me think, like, do other people know that?
Oh, now I know where you're going with this. Okay.
But then when I thought that, I was thinking, to me, this movie feels like the rich man's Fast and Furious. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Because it feels a little more elevated. It's not so ridiculous. There are some ridiculous scenes, like in the train sequence. So the plan at the end is that, because in Mission Impossible, they can make like fake faces. Mm-hmm. So Tom Cruise's plan is like, they're going to pretend to be... who's the lady with Alanna and her helper. Tom Cruise and Grace are going to pretend to be those two so they can get the key.
Who's her brother?
But at the last minute, the machine for making the faces breaks, so only Grace can go. And Tom Cruise says, I promise I will find you on the train. I'll figure it out. So he and Simon Pegg figure out, like, we're going to jump on the train. Like, I'm going to jump on the train, but then the train's going too fast because Gabriel rigged it so it won't stop. Because the plan is to crash the train.
It's a runaway train.
It's a runaway train. So then Tom Cruise decides that he's going to like parachute off a mountain to land on the train, which is already crazy. And then right as Grace is about to be shot and killed, Tom Cruise is like, he flies through the train on the parachute and knocks out the person. I mean, that's Fast and Furious level ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it's
But
fine.
somehow it worked, and people were clapping, and I thought it was fun. Because it's like, it's used more sparingly.
It is.
Because it's almost like, because the Bond movies, like with Daniel Craig, seem more like they're trying to be serious. So I feel like if you combine like a James Bond movie with Fast and Furious, you get Mission Impossible. And I didn't mind that.
No. Henry Czerny is also back as Kittridge, who's kind of a frenemy from the first film that returns, that is ultimately convinced to hire Grace as part of IMF at the end. I also thought, I kept not being too entirely clear how he's involved, and I don't know if that'll be explained better, like what side of the division he stands on. But
I wrote down the Venice sequence is boring. I don't even remember what the Venice sequence was.
Well, it's kind of a scene of respites, because that's where there's more talking.
Oh, that's where they go to that nightclub.
Oh, there's a nightclub scene.
I thought that was boring because they're just talking. There's so much explaining that it just feels repetitive. And then because I knew it was almost 3 hours long, it's like, why do we keep talking? There could be a game counting the number of times someone says the word the entity and then explain that it's like this sentient AI. Like, we get it. We know what it is. And that Venice sequence, they really... And then it's Gabriel explaining the odds and the probability that the entity knows how this night's going to end. And then Venice was empty. They were running through the...
I bet in that square, though.
But there was no one around. And they're like having these full-on fights.
That's kind of what Venice feels like at night.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's full of tourists during the day, and at night there's nothing.
I thought that was so weird that there was no one around as these people are fighting.
That's kind of how...
Well, then I take that back.
But really what that scene is, it's really just a lesser version of the airport scene, because you have the same people all trying to corner him.
Well, yeah, it felt repetitive. I would have killed Grace. After she ran away the second time, I can't trust her. And she's the reason why things are more and more complicated.
Yeah, but I think we're led to believe that he's attracted to her. So that's why.
I mean, okay. Why was Gabriel in a coffin? I wasn't...
He was...
Is he human?
He's supposed to be human, but we're also told that he's being erased in real time.
Well, I understood that meant that the entity is erasing him from surveillance.
Yeah.
So that made sense that the entity doesn't want anyone to track him. But
that's who got smuggled on the train, right?
But he seems like... Yeah, he's in a coffin with like some device. I was a little confused.
There's another scene where Tom Cruise, in disguise, takes out everybody. I think in the beginning where he uses the gas.
Yeah.
That green gas that felt very much like the first Batman.
I think Gabriel's a good villain because I hated him. I really did. But the actor did a good job with what he was supposed to do, but he just seems so vile and cold, so it's very effective.
You just saw him in Master Gardener.
I don't remember him in Master. Oh, he's the parole or the... Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're keeping Tom's hair brown.
Yeah?
He looks good. Yeah. To me, it was obvious that this was filmed over a long period of time because his look does kind of...
Well, he was 57 when it started, which is... That's the age of Jon Voight in the first Mission Impossible, who played his boss.
He looks pretty fresh in some scenes, like he had just had the work done, and then in others it's like, oh, it's kind of settled, and then his hair is a little more vigorously brown, and then in others, like, I mean, pretty drastic change. I mean, in some scenes, like deep, medium brown, and then like in some scenes it almost looks like it's like the lightest brown, and it was noticeable enough that I thought it was, I'm not gonna say distracting, but it was noticeable.
Well, I think like as in the makeup he's wearing in the nightclub scene.
And then there are some scenes where he is wearing all of the makeup. Yeah, but I still think he did a great job.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, and if you like watching him run, which I think that's what he's best at, is running.
He looks good when he runs.
He does. He has that pacing down.
Yeah. I'll definitely watch the second one.
Oh, I was gonna say that scene you referenced with the bike on the train. That's the poster.
Oh. What would you give this movie?
3.
I would give this 3 out of 5. Anything else? Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.